Hi guys, so I wanted to do a video because I keep getting these notifications on my YouTube about a food shortage coming. So I just wanted to put up a dream I had. I had this dream a very, 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 very long time ago. It's actually a culmination of dreams, and it seems like all of these dreams are gonna like end up coming true. But I just wanted to make a record of it. So way before COVID started, so before 2020, today is August 8th. Sorry, August 7th, 2024. So before 2020, I had a dream. And it's very important because the dream was weird. I was looking at a woman, she was a nun, and she was feeding all of these kids. But the strange thing about it is that in the dream, I could tell that there were no adults around. Like all of these kids were orphans, and their parents must have died somehow. And so they had no parents. And I could tell, even if she looked like she was probably 50 years old, I could tell that she was the oldest person around, basically. Like there was like her age group had like died off. So like there weren't any people above like 30. So she looked to be around 50 and she was a nun. She had on a full nun outfit. There was like a small cafeteria-ish building and she was feeding all of these kids like from the lack. She had nothing, but she refused to let these kids starve. So she was just making sure that all of the kids ate. There was some teenagers. I could tell that all of these children grew up with her. And there were teenagers with that had grown up. They had probably been under her care for maybe like 6 or 7 years. But I remember there was a small group of them. There wasn't a lot of teenagers. Most of the kids in her care were like 11 and under. They were small, small, small kids. And I don't know how that's possible, but there were some teenagers that she had, and they were like the older group, but there was just a small group of them. Anyways, um, what was happening was that they went looking for food because they knew that there was no food. And they went looking for food and they found a shipping container. And they opened it. The shipping container was full of food. And immediately they thought to go back to the nun to tell her, like, we have food for the kids. I thought that was strange. And I remember just thinking, where are all the adults? I don't know what happened, but it seemed like some event happened where all of the adults were wiped out. Does that make sense? All of the adults were gone. It's like all of these kids had been born, but they had no parents. And this one woman who happened to be old was taking care of them. She was feeding them, feeding all these kids, feeding all these kids, feeding all these kids. So that was one dream. Briefly after that, again, prior to COVID, I had a dream about a plague. This dream scared me. What happened in the dream was that I was walking down the street. I was in an inner city, and I was in likely a northern inner city because anyone who knows about inner cities knows that the southern inner cities look different from the northern one. I was in a northern inner city, and I was walking down the street. Everything looked normal. Everyone was black. Everyone was walking around like it was no problems. However, across the street from where I was walking, I saw three graves. I saw three coffins above ground in a cemetery. So there was a cemetery across the street, and there was three coffins above ground. And I knew in my spirit in the dream that there was no work available. There was no people available to lower the coffins into the ground. I realized they had no workers. So the coffins were just sitting up there above ground. They had not been lowered. And I remember it was almost like this strange dichotomy in a dream because on my side of the street, the black people, like everyone was fine. On the opposite side of the street, there was a cemetery and there was not enough workers to lower the coffins. And I remember everyone walking around like there was no problems. Like it was just like it was normal. Anyways, I was in the dream and I remember crying out in the dream. I looked to the sky and I was like, Lord, why? I just screamed, why? Why? But I don't know why I screamed that. I just knew that people were dying, like there was a plague that happened. So to fast forward to 2020, when 2020 came, my spirit knew that it wasn't real. I'm just sorry, I have to say it. It wasn't my dream. Does that make sense? So when 2020 came, I knew that it wasn't the plague that I saw in my dream. And I knew because I do believe that God gives me dreams and visions in chronological order. That's just how I feel. So I believe that the famine dream was going to happen first, that there was going to be a famine, and then there would be a plague. But I don't know why I thought that, right? Because that's me adding into what the revelations that God is giving. I'm adding my own thoughts to the revelation. It could be that the plague comes before the famine, and this is why all of these kids don't have parents, right? Because one of the things we know about COVID is that it didn't affect young children, but it was affecting their parents. So we could have another situation where there's another plague, wipes out a lot of people's parents, and then boom, there's all these orphans around. I just remember knowing in that dream that this nun was like one of the oldest people oldest people around, because all of the people her age had died, basically. Or many of the people her age had died. And she was also, I have to say this too, her location. She was in an up north city, and she was just doing her best to feed these kids, to feed these orphans. Like her whole entire life was devoted to making sure they lived. Like she didn't care if she ate, she didn't care if she was okay, she didn't care about bugs, she didn't care about anything. The only thing this woman cared about was making sure these kids ate, because she wanted them to live. But I also thought, when I woke up from that dream, thought about the fact that history and knowledge, we have so much history and knowledge. A lot of that is passed down through our parents, and our parents will tell us about our grandparents and da 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 da, and going back and going back. When you wipe out when you wipe out a lot of people's parents, what's going to happen is that they're not going to know who they are and where they came from, right? So they're not going to have those stories to know, like, oh, my grandparent or my great grand, they're going to be missing. Those kids that she's taking care of in that dream are going to be missing a huge part of their history. And I knew too, in the dream, she was up north. I knew she was up north. I knew that she wasn't going to move. She wasn't going to leave where she was. Like she was determined to stay where she was and to just take care of these kids and to be diligent and disciplined in that. And so I just have to say this only because there's a lot of people. There's a guy who has a channel called Last Days. He's talking about a famine coming. I do believe that there is a famine. I have to bring up another dream. Sorry. I had a dream after COVID. This dream happened after COVID, particularly right around the tissue shortages. Right around we couldn't, there was like crazy buying of tissue. I had a dream. I saw a supermarket. So I saw a supermarket. The produce section was beautiful. It was colorful. You had apples and carrots and, avocados. It was full. So the produce section of the supermarket was completely full. However, when I looked over towards the shelves, all of the shelves were empty. Everything on the shelves were empty. Everything on the shelves were empty. I took that to mean, I don't know what it means, but I'm guessing that if a shortage does come, it's probably not going to affect produce, but it's definitely going to affect things like cookies, crackers, those kind of things. So I think that if people can grow their own food or store seeds or do very basic things, they're going to survive. And people who obviously can't are going to, are probably going to struggle. Does that make sense? So I don't think that whatever's coming is going to affect produce. And if it does affect produce, I think that people are still going to have the ability to grow food. I don't think the weather patterns are going to change. It's just going to be people are going to have to grow their own food, or at least, find a front yard or a backyard or empty lot in their city to grow food on. I think that people are going to be able to grow food during this famine, whatever's coming. So I think the famine is mainly going to impact store shelves and going to impact stores. I don't think it's going to impact the land. The land is still going to produce. If you put something in the ground, I do believe that it's going to grow. But I'm not sure, because that's another thing. We have a peach tree. I live in an inner city. Like, I live in the middle of a ghetto. But my parents have a house here. And in our backyard, my brother planted many years ago, probably 15 years now, 2 peach trees. One of them died, and the other one is fruitful. It bears fruit every single year. It bears so many peaches. Like, one family cannot eat it. Like, we can't eat all those peaches, and it goes to waste because it just falls off the tree. It falls on the ground, and so it's like scattered all over the ground. And so my mom has to go out there. She goes out there and she picks the peaches off and then washes them. She cuts them up and then she bags them and puts them in the freezer. And she does her little soups, and not soups, but her little juices, her peach juice that she makes. But I do have to say something. Even as I'm saying that I don't think the ground is going to have problems, something did happen with the weather 2024. Something happened. This peach tree is not bearing the way it normally is, the way it normally would. So I do have to say that the peaches that we're getting this year look like, I'm looking at the tree, it just looks really, and I'm not sure, because me and my mom were talking about this because it got struck by lightning last year. So we were talking about Is the tree not growing because it got struck by light? Is the peach just not growing normally because it got struck by lightning or what? But I do have to say something else. My mom planted some corn. She planted corn too, and I'll put up a video. She planted corn. The corn stalks are tall. They're at least 7 feet. I did not think that corn got that tall. But let me tell you, there's no corn stalks, and that's the thing she told me. She said she got the corn stalks because my parents are immigrants from Jamaica. She got the corn seeds. So what she did was that she got a thing of corn in Jamaica while she was in Jamaica. She cut the seeds, the kernels off. She let them dry out, of course, and then when she came back to America, she planted them in the backyard. So she's like, I don't understand why these seeds, why these corn stalks didn't bear anything. They didn't bear anything, not one ear. I'm going to put up a video. There's not one ear of corn on these stalks. And then also the peach tree is like right next to it, so you'll see all of that in the video that I'm going to take. So let me not say that fruit and vegetables are going to be in the ground growing. I do think that there's something going on with the fruits. My mom plants a garden practically every single year. I looked at the tomatoes that are supposed to be growing, and I'm gonna have to ask her if the tomatoes are growing naturally, because I don't garden. So this is her thing. This is what she does every year. As a Jamaican, this is what people who come from other countries do. So she plants a garden, and I looked at the tomatoes that are growing out there, and they look like cherry tomatoes, and they're supposed to be bigger than that. And they're also supposed to be green. So I don't know why they're growing so small. So I do think there's something going on. And I do have to say, there are cherry blossoms. It was so cold. The cherry blossoms came out. They did blossom. But it was so cold that I missed a lot of the blossoming of the trees. So it's just a lot. There's something going on with the weather. I don't know if it's a cold snap or something that happened early in the year. But I don't think that the plants are producing well during this time. For this year, but I think during this famine, it's very possible that they will be, and so those are my 3 dreams. The nun feeding all the kids, no adults around. The second dream being about the plague, where everyone was like acting normal, but then there was like bodies across the street that couldn't be buried.
Control its own people.
So many funerals. And they have 3 hearses. So you got this hearse, which is just flowers, and then you got the actual hearse with the body in it. But there's so many funerals. Look at this, a whole nother funeral. And then obviously the third one being about this famine where all the shelves were empty in the store, but there was plenty of fruits and vegetables. Like everything fresh was just abundant and full. So the entire produce section was full. It looked normal. But the store shelves were bare. Like there was nothing on the store shelves. And so I definitely think, I don't know, I think other people have gotten a lot more detailed dreams than me. These dreams are like random and been very sporadic. I don't know what they all mean. I don't know when they're all going to happen and what's going to bring these things to pass. But I do know that my spirit knew that all of these dreams were coming. Does that make sense? So they weren't just like a dream, like, oh, you're just having a dream. I knew when I woke up, all of these dreams were going to happen. The plague was going to happen, and for some people, it was going to be a normal day. For other people, it was going to be like bodies piled up, not being able to be buried. Does that make sense? And that could have been COVID too. That could have been COVID. Only reason why I say it probably wasn't COVID because, like I said, I was in the Black community, and the Black community was hit hard by COVID. It wasn't just business as usual in the Black community during COVID. Quite the contrary. So, but during this dream, the Black community was like business as usual, and then right across the street, there was bodies that could not be buried, and they couldn't be buried because there wasn't enough labor. There wasn't enough people like available to bury the bodies, basically. So I do think that there's a bunch of things coming, a bunch of things that may be happening soon. But I do believe 2030, everyone should be completely prepared. Like completely, got to get prepared before 2030. Got to get prepared. Got to be ready. Because it's gonna be like 2020, except way worse.